Hey guys, Dr. Cole here. Hey, I hope you're all doing awesome today. In today's video, we actually have a training for you today as a way of answering one of the questions that I get most often, and probably one of the most researched things on YouTube in regards to health, which is what diet is best? Dr. Cole, which diet should I be following is something I hear over and over again. So in today's training, I'm going to do my best to answer this for you. I'm going to tell you certainly what I eat, what I believe makes the most sense based upon traditions and what our ancestors used to eat, and what I recommend my clients eat as well. Now, that being said, depending on why you're watching this video and where you're at in your health journey, if you're watching this with a specific condition, I'm not saying that this is the best diet for everybody, making a sweeping claim that every single person needs to follow this. But I do believe it's the best for most people. Depending on your situation, you may need to follow something different or even omit some of the things from this here. But if you're looking for something that's going to be based upon, like we said, our ancestors, tradition, things that are just common sense approaches here, I think you're going to get a ton out of this video. Before we dive into the slide deck here, I want to first talk about where this information comes from, because it's not all just myself. I'm thankful to have learned these things just like I'm sharing them with you here today. So there's a group called the Weston A. Price Foundation. If you go to their website, the westonapricefoundation.org, there's a ton of information where you can learn how to implement what you're going to hear in today's video. Because this can be like an overarching training, but if you want to learn the details, find local chapters in your area, get connected with local farmers markets, some of the resources that you can take this information and now apply it to your own life. For sure, go to that website. Awesome resource. Excuse me. And the website, the Weston A. Price Foundation, is actually based upon this dentist, Weston A. Price. And much of what I learn, much of what I teach my clients is based upon the principles that this man taught in his lifetime. And so starting out here, the first thing I say, he's a dentist. Sometimes people will say, well, what does a dentist really know about health? There's this mindset today, especially in American thinking, that, medical doctors are just the pinnacle of medical knowledge. They have we should go to them for everything. And look, I'm certainly not saying that all medical doctors are bad. There are some great doctors out there. Perhaps you have an awesome medical doctor. I have friends who are medical doctors that are awesome. But the reality is, when it comes to health, all medical doctors are trained in schools that are funded by Big Pharma. And what does Big Pharma teach? It teaches that if you've ever been to your doctor or to a hospital, you probably know that the most treatments today only include drugs. They only include pharmaceutical medications. That's the only intervention, and they don't really take into consideration too many dietary or lifestyle changes. So again, am I saying doctors are bad? Absolutely no. We need medical doctors, and they're the best for emergency care. But that doesn't mean we write off other professions as well. Dentists, chiropractors, naturopathic doctors, homeopathy. There could be bad apples in those bunches too. But a lot of those practitioners that are more natural minded, they know a good bit about health. And especially back, if you go back to Dr. Weston A. Price's day. So who was he? He was back in the 1930s. That other topic, so a whole conversation for another day. Dr. Weston A. Price, I think he was born in the late 1800s. And in the 1930s, he traveled the world looking for remote pockets of people that lived after the same manner of their ancestors. Now, why was he doing this? He noticed that in his dental practice that people were having tons of cavities, oral decay, gingivitis, just poor oral health, and that there was a major connection between a person's oral health and their overall health. And that's true today. I'll tell you, if you're a person who has bad oral health, if you're losing your teeth, if they're falling out, you have cavities, if you just have poor oral health in general, that's a major reflection of what's going on inside your body. So our mouth is a great reflection of the overall health of our body, especially from a nutrient standpoint. So, back in his day, in the early 1900s, people were unhealthy back then, and they were losing their teeth. There was a lot of cavities. He just saw, a lot of physical decay in his practice, which is why his book is called Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. So he traveled the world every single summer from 1930 to 1940. He went to remote pockets of the world from many different countries: Switzerland, Ireland, Africa. He went to places in America like Alaska, far up in Canada. And he recorded what these people ate, how they lived. Back then in the 1930s, you could still find people that lived so remotely, pockets of them, that they still lived after the same manner of their ancestors. And so he lived among them, and he recorded what they ate, their quality of health, their quality of life, and vastly different from what he noticed back home in his dental practice. So he noticed that this is what we're going to get into today, no matter where he was at in the world, whether it was far north or far south, whether it was islands or mainlands, all ancient peoples, all ancient civilizations followed similar characteristics, similar principles in regards to their diets. And they all had robust health. They all had great teeth, good bone structure, long, healthy lives. They were just more robust than we are today here. His book's fascinating. If you're a reader, certainly get that book, Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. But in today's video, he wrote down like the 11 characteristics of traditional diets. And that's what we're going to be discussing here today. So we're not going to get into all the details today. I'm going to give you the big picture, go over the important things. And then, like I said, visit that website too. And we'll do, for sure, additional follow-up videos on this topic too, because I get a ton of questions about it. It's more than you could just discuss in one video here. So we're going to go today over the overarching theme and then break it down into bite-sized chunks for future videos about how to apply this to your life. So let me share my screen here and make sure this is showing up okay. Give me 1 second here. Okay, so you should be seeing this right now. The 11 characteristics of traditional diets. So we're going to break these down slide by slide here. Again, these aren't for any single one culture, but these are things that he noticed across cultures, no matter where he lives. So diving into principle number 1. This will be pretty much an easy one today because we know the standard American diet is so bad. But he wrote that the diets of healthy, non-industrialized peoples contain no refined or denatured foods or ingredients. These would be things such as refined sugar, high fructose corn syrup, white flour, canned foods, pasteurized or homogenized skim or low-fat milk. If you have any of those, just don't drink milk altogether. Any refined or hydrogenated vegetable oils, protein powders, synthetic vitamins. That's a massive industry today, the vitamin industry. Most of them are synthetic. Most of them do nothing for your health. And he also said that they didn't have any toxic additives or artificial coloring. So look, we are in a nation today where we love things that are sold to us and packaged to us for health, but oftentimes they don't deliver any real value. So as we're going to go through this, you're going to understand that real health can never come from a company selling you a health product like a protein powder or just take this magic elixir here and you're going to get better. Real health is also not going to come from big grocery stores. You know, thank God we have these things. I love that we live in America and we have the ease and convenience of just going to the grocery store today. And there are some good things there for sure. But you're always going to do better. You're always going to reach your health goals if you grow your own food or shop locally or have local farmers markets. That's why you got to check out these chapters nearest you in the Weston A website there. Because when you get connected with local food that's grown to its fully ripened in the ground or on the tree, and they don't use pesticides or chemicals or fertilizers on it, that food is so much more nutritious for you than food that has to be grown by big agriculture, that has to be picked before it's ripe, so it's not allowed to have all the nutrients in it. If you pick something before it's ripe, it doesn't fully develop all the nutrients and vitamins and minerals that your body needs from those foods. They have to pick them before they're ripe, to put them on the trucks, to travel to the stores and sit there so that they can look good for you and I to purchase them. So that's a big thing, understanding for this first slide here is that while there are grocery stores out there that are better than others, and I'm not trying to give anybody a disheartening situation here right now because people are in all different walks watching this here. And you have to do your best with what you're able to right now. If all you can do is go to a grocery store, hey, start there and buy the best, most healthy foods that you can. But you do have to read nutrition labels and you do have to get these refined things out of your diet. If it is a dead food, if it is refined, if it's been processed in any way, even if you find it at a health food store, that's not going to be a living, healing food for your body. So read your nutrition labels, try and shop locally, cut these main things that you see here out of your diet altogether, and just know that health is going to come from whole foods with no ingredient labels. Okay, principle number 2. All traditional cultures consume at least some sort of animal food. Now, these might be fish or shellfish, land and waterfowl, land and sea mammals, eggs, milk and milk products. And this might be a little gross for us today in America, even insects too. So the whole animal is consumed. This was called a nose to tail type diet. They ate animals in a nose to tail fashion. The muscle meats, the organs, which are huge organ meats, the bones, the fats, with the organ meats and the fats being the preferred parts of these animals here. So I will tell you that I said that there's this is what I follow. This is what I recommend for my patients to follow. But you have to do your own research and figure out what works best for you. There is one diet I will tell you that I absolutely never recommend, And he never saw this practice by any ancient cultures. It's all theoretical. It's all just new age and modern for today. And that's veganism or vegetarianism. So some of my sickest clients that I've seen in my practice are people that have followed a vegan vegetarian diet for a long period of time. And so that is one thing I will come out here and take a stance on and say, I absolutely recommend no one follow an only plant-based diet. There may be times of the year where you need the detox, you need the cleanse, or depending on what you're facing, you may do best on a short-term plant-based diet to allow your body to cleanse. I do that sometimes. I do these things called liver gallbladder flushes once a year, and I get all the animal products out of my diet. I eat a plant-based diet, and there's some preparation for this, and it's a way to cleanse your liver and your gallbladder, liver gallbladder flush. But we're not designed to live our lives that way. So as we're going to go over in the coming slides here, the nutrients found in animal foods in many ways are unparalleled cannot be paralleled in plant foods. Animal foods are unparalleled. The reason why is that when you get the vitamins and the minerals in an animal-based product, all of those nutrients are already in an activated form. They're ready for your body to use in your body right away. They have to go through no processing, no activation. However, when we eat certain plants, depending on how that plant was prepared, depending on our genetics, depending on our ability to digest that plant-based product, some of those vitamins are in an inactive form that must be activated. And if we can't do that properly because of genetics or not having the right digestion and absorption, we're not going to be able to utilize the vitamins from that plant. So eating a whole animal food diet, nose to tail principles, getting the things in that we don't like the organ meats. We eat grass-fed beef liver about once per week. We make bone broth. These are the things that our ancestors highly, highly regarded and prized as the best foods out there. I do drink milk. I do have raw milk products in my diet. We have grass-fed butter, raw grass-fed butter. We do eat eggs, fish eggs sometimes even. And I was never a fish eater before, but when I went through my own health journey, having to recover from some very serious digestive issues, I was forced to eat things that I never did before. And so I started incorporating fish and whole fish into my diet. And the biggest changes I saw were when I personally began to follow a keto carnivore type diet, having not only meat in my diet, but having that be a very kind of like the bottom of the pyramid, the foundation for everything as part of my diet personally. As I said, depending on what you're facing, you may not want to only do animal foods, although a lot of people get better just on a carnivore diet. That's like an awesome little YouTube trail to go down there, just watching people and their testimonials on following a carnivore type diet. And I believe the reason is that we've had for a long time, so many unhealthy animals fed to us, so many processed food animals, so many animals on feedlots that are fed genetically modified corn, soybeans, wheat, sprayed with glyphosate, and this all bioaccumulates in these animals, that when we get healthy animal products into our body, or just the idea too that animals are bad for us, they cause colon cancer, red meat's bad for you, that whole idea has made so many people just shy away from this type of product that when a person returns and eats these foods, their body soaks up all those nutrients and they feel better. So absolutely, Dr. Weston A. Price noticed that wherever he was at in the world, they didn't eat vegetables and fruits all the time. Some cultures didn't really eat them at all, but they all ate animal fats and animal proteins. All right, principle number 3, the diets of healthy, non-industrialized peoples contain at least 4 times the minerals and water-soluble vitamins like vitamin B, vitamin C, all the different B vitamins, 4 times those, and 10 times the fat-soluble vitamins that are found in animal fats. So this vitamins A, D, E, and K. Dr. Weston A. Price called something activator X, which we now believe is vitamin K2. There are 10 times the fat-soluble vitamins and 4 times the minerals and water-soluble vitamins in these traditional diets than the average American diet. And so that's because they ate a lot of fat. They ate a lot of animal fat. See this butter on the screen here? That's about as thick as I put butter on my toast. I mean, we load it on there. We get the full fat, raw, grass-fed milk. We do the full fat creamers. We eat the animal fats with the meats too. You have the skin on the chicken. You have the bones in the animal. You do those things for the nutrients of it. You make the bone broth. You cook these types of collagen and gelatinous rich broths that are going to give your body just way more minerals and nutrients than these just nutrient devoid diet that we follow in America today. So healthy fats are your friend. You're going to get all the fat soluble vitamins, especially from organ meats like liver too. Okay. Principle 4, all traditional diets cooked some of their food, but they all consumed a portion of their animal foods raw. So let's talk about this for a minute. When I say they cook some of their food, Depending on what a person is facing. If I work with a really bad gut case or a really bad autoimmune case, of course, we're gonna, get on an autoimmune type diet, and that may even short term mean, hey, maybe a person can't have milk. I went through about 6 months of my life, and I was recovering from my GI issues, where I did cut milk out of my diet. But I always had the plan I was going to get healthy enough to reintroduce these things again too. So on the note of cooking your foods, some people have to cook their vegetables and fruits. If you're a person who has GI issues, if you don't tolerate some plant-based foods, you should probably start by cooking all of your plant-based foods. And many of our previous cultures used to do that as a way to inhibit protective mechanisms in those plants, like lectins, like phytic acid, even like ways to leaven bread to inhibit gluten. They would cook or prepare their foods differently. Today, we cook most of our meats, and that's certainly fine. I do that too. I will give you a little side note that my wife does eat liver raw. I don't know how she does it, but she does eat grass-fed beef liver raw. But all of the ancient cultures would have some of their animal foods raw, whether that was organ meats, whether that was fish like sushi, or whether it's like you see on the screen here. And this is something that I do recommend if you're going to have dairy, if you reintroduce this into your diet, find one of the local chapters on westonaprice.org and make sure that you're getting completely raw, full-fat, grass-fed milk. We have raw butter, we have raw milk, we have raw kefir. If you are going to try and incorporate dairy into your diet, you have to get the best quality version of it. And the reason that most people cannot tolerate these foods is because they've been eating such a denatured version of these things for such a long time that the body doesn't recognize it as a food. It reacts to it. It's pasteurized, homogenized, or skim milk, or like 2% milk. Those are all dead foods that your body doesn't recognize, so it reacts to it. Because of that, because it's been responding and reacting to those foods for so long, you may have to take a break from it for a short period of time and allow your immune system and your gut to heal. As it does, and you reintroduce small portions of things like goat milk or sheep's milk first before cow's milk, have those things raw, and your body will tolerate them a heck of a lot better. Principle 5 is that all primitive and traditional diets have a high content of food enzymes, beneficial bacteria from lacto-fermented vegetables, fruits, beverages, dairy products, meats, and condiments. So this is a big topic of mine in my coaching course called GI Revive that I take my clients through. I have a whole video called Gut Healing Foods. And, our ancestors understood this. They didn't have refrigerators back then. So to make food last longer, they had to lacto-ferment it. They had to probiotically preserve it. And whenever they would take foods in this fashion, let's say like sauerkraut or kimchi or beets or pickles, for example, when they would submerge that in a saltwater brine, not only would it preserve the food, but the food would begin to pre-digest. And all these bacteria cultures that are healthy for our microbiome would grow within that food, making it easier for our gut and also re-supporting cultures that our gut needs as well. So those are like lacto-fermented vegetables. They would do fruits the same way, dairy products like kefir, even condiments. All the ketchup and mustard and stuff today, most of them are just, they're dead products. They're vinegar-based. There are some living vinegars like apple cider vinegar. But before, they used to put like fish sauces in there and apple cider vinegar, certain things in it to make it a probiotic, living, cultured type food. So all condiments that they would put on food before had a purpose. It was to help us make it more easier for us to digest the meats or whatever food we were putting that onto. So in our diet today, it's very important to search out these lacto-fermented, probiotic, living, live culture type foods, because they don't just help your gut, they actually help you to break down your other foods as well. They provide enzymes to your body, which makes it easier on your pancreas to break down your food. All right, quick sip of water here. Principle number 6 is that all seeds, grains, and nuts were soaked, sprouted, fermented, or naturally leavened to neutralize naturally occurring anti-nutrients such as enzyme inhibitors, tannins, phytic acid. I would also add lectins and gluten to that group as well. So most people have heard of gluten, right? What is gluten? It's a protein in bread that many people are allergic to. It's in wheat, it's in barley. And so if you have GI issues or autoimmune issues, you can probably do best on a gluten-free diet. However, the problem here is that the way we eat our grains today and our nuts and seeds, we don't eat them the same way that our ancestors used to. I said if you're having vegetables and you don't tolerate them, to cook them first, and that will let you digest them and tolerate them a lot easier. Same thing with our breads and grains. When you soak these things before you eat them or before you prepare them, you inhibit the protective mechanisms in these plants that our body reacts to. I'll give you an example about gluten for a minute here. Not only is this is the whole topic. I did another video on this. Go back and watch that in my YouTube channel. But not only is all the grains that we eat today, most of them are genetically modified or they have been hybridized. They contain hyper concentrations of gluten because they've been crossbred with so many other wild grasses and plants that it's not the same type of a wheat that our ancestors used to eat. An ancient form of wheat is called einkorn, E-I-N-K-O-R-N. And einkorn has very low levels of gluten. And people also use, it's also a different type of gluten altogether. But people used to make sourdough breads where they would take the dough, and instead of going through these hyper fast rising processes today to make a higher yield to sell more bread, they would allow it to sit in their house, the starter culture, to sit and grab all these wild yeast from the air, and actually helps you to tolerate your foods better because you're eating a food that has the same microbes as the air you're breathing, as your surrounding environment here. But what that does is those wild microbes and yeast, they naturally begin to help to inhibit the effects of gluten. So when you take a bread and you allow it to rise properly for a long period of time, and you use an ancient type of grain that's never been hybridized or modified, your body's going to tolerate that a heck of a lot better than these modern processed GMO hyper fast breads that they just make so quickly to get a higher yield out there is what I'm trying to say. The other thing with the nuts and seeds too is so simple, guys. You can take your nuts and seeds, you soak these things overnight in a mason jar, then you take them and you drain all the water, you put them out into a little dehydrator, and then you dehydrate them overnight. And that allows all the plant inhibitors like the phytic acid and the nuts to be inhibited themselves so that we can now better digest those foods and extract the nutrients from our nuts and seeds. So that's what we do. Homemade sourdough breads or breads made in that manner from like local stores we'll go to. And we for sure soak and sprout all of our nuts and seeds. All right, principle number 7 is that the total fat content, this is crazy, the total fat content of traditional diet varies from 30% to 80% in some cultures of their total calories, but only about 4% of calories come from polyunsaturated oils naturally occurring in grains, legumes, nuts, fish, animal fats, and vegetables. So the balance of the fat calories is in the form of saturated and monounsaturated fatty acids. So what does this mean here? We are told in America today that saturated fat is the worst type of fat for you. Don't eat coconut oil, don't have butter, don't have ghee and lard and all these things that our ancestors grew up on, because that's going to clog your arteries and cause heart disease. Do you notice the exact opposite? That coconut oil and healthy animal fats, like we have grass-fed butter and ghee, and we cook with beef tallow, those animal fats are so nutrient dense, so nutrient rich, and they contain all the fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K, that they're a nutrient powerhouse for your body. And it's all the modern industrialized oils today. It's the canola oil, it's the soybean oil. It's all the things that, our ancestors, they would have only gotten oil out of things that could naturally be pressed with a stone before. A stone press. Think of like olive oil. You put all the olives in the stone press, you roll the stone around and the oil comes out. After the Industrial Revolution, when we have all these mechanical presses today that can exhibit and enforce so much more power on seeds like safflower and soybeans and canola oil today, this rapeseed oil, that we can extract these different oils now, but they're not healthy. The way we extract them would never have been done traditionally. And when these oils are extracted from these unnatural type sources, they're very unstable, they're rancid, they cause inflammation problems in our body. So we always want to go back to what did our ancestors do? They got butter because butter is easy to make. They had olive oil, they had coconut oil. These things are easy to get. They would press flax seeds because you would get oil from them very readily. So we want to always stick with what our ancestors have done, and those fats and oils will never steer you wrong. They'll always be better tolerated by your body and deliver more nutrients for you as well. All right, principle 8 is that traditional diets contain nearly equal amounts of omega-6 and omega-3. This will kind of piggyback on the last slide there. All the rancid modern fats that we do today, the hydrogenated oils, the soybean, the canola oil, these things are so skewed omega-6 to omega-3. There's sometimes a 100-to-1 ratio. But the cells in your body are like a 1-to-1 ratio, 1 omega-6 for every 1 omega-3. And we get that when we eat the healthy fats we just named, especially fish and fish oils here too. So I told you I was never a big fish eater before. Every single week now I do either some anchovies or sardines. I get salmon in. You want to do fish oils. You want to do this healthy fats. And you want to make sure that your meat, like your lamb or beef, is grass-fed, because grass-fed animals are going to have the fats in this 1-to-1, maybe a 1-to-1, 1-to-3, 1-to-4 ratio. much more in line with what nature has and what your body uses than these industrial modified fats that are used in the standard American diet today, which will really catapult your body into an inflammatory type ratio. Wrapping up here, a few more, guys. Principle number 9 is that all traditional diets contain some salt. We're told, again, this is one of the things that we vilify salt today. Get the salt out of your diet. Get the sodium out of your diet. Follow a low sodium, low salt type diet for better heart health. Well, look, if you're going to have white Morton's table salt, I absolutely agree. Get that junk out of your diet because it's not salt at all. It's a chemical made salt. But if you get real Celtic sea salt, or like you see here on the screen, pink Himalayan salt, this salt is not just only sodium for your body. It contains tons of other minerals and nutrients that help your body to absorb the sodium better. And it's not going to raise up your blood pressure or cause all these, cardiovascular issues like the man-made table salt does. So get real salt in your diet, use it liberally. All the things that we're told not to do, we do the opposite of. We eat tons of butter. We eat a good amount of animal fats. We eat loads of salt. I load my meat up with salt. And these things, they give not just a better satisfaction to your diet as well, you enjoy it more, they actually have a nutritional benefit for your body too. All right, principle 10, all traditional cultures made use of animal bones, usually in the form of gelatin-rich broths. So people know about bone broth today, right? It's not some new thing. Finally, this thing is catching on here, but not many people know how much we really should be drinking. Our ancestors would have always had a pot going with the discarded parts of the animals or the discarded parts of the vegetables that they were cooking with, and they would put it in there so they didn't go to waste. And they would always have this thing be cooking on these long cook times, like 24 hours or so, to extract all the gelatin and the minerals and the amino acids and the collagen out of these bones for our body. So you should be drinking minimally 1 mug of bone broth per day. I take collagen powders and gelatin powders to supplement that as well, and making bone broth quite frequently. If you just buy it in the store occasionally, you're not going to be getting nearly the benefits you need. And it will just be another thing you're thinking, okay, well, hey, I tried bone broth and it didn't work for me. No, do it aggressively. When you do these things, jump into these protocols and do them aggressively to really determine if it worked for you or not. So aggressive amounts of bone broth, aggressive amounts of collagen and gelatin-rich products, and minimally, like I said, 1 mug per day, coffee mug. Finally, guys, last one here is not a food principle, but it's just something to make yourself aware of, especially if you are an expectant mother, if you're a young mother of new children, if you are planning on having kids, if you know someone who has young kids. Traditional cultures always made provisions for the health of future generations by providing special nutrient-rich animal foods for parents to be. This was especially pregnant women, growing children. They had proper spacing of their children to give a mother's body time to recover before the next child. And they taught principles of a right diet to a young age. So some of these foods, and there's whole pages on this on the website for the Weston A Price Foundation, but some of the most nutrient-dense foods they made sure expectant mothers would be eating while they were pregnant is liver, fish eggs, butter, eggs, raw grass-fed milk, heavy creamers, like some of the most heaviest nutrient-dense foods are what we just named there. Anchovies, sardines, some of those small fish. You're probably turning up your face right now if you're an expectant mom thinking, I really got to eat those things. Absolutely, yes. Especially, I'll go off on a little tangent here. There's not a more nutrient-dense food on earth than grass-fed beef liver. And you don't got to eat a ton of it. Eat about the size of the palm of your hand or less, maybe like a 3-ounce portion or so. What you need to make a baby, what you need to grow a healthy baby, what you need to feed your baby, what do we need for our bodies to be healthy are all found within liver. And, liver is one of those things where we think, okay, well, should we really eat this because it doesn't store toxins? No, your liver filters toxins. It puts them into your kidneys or into your colon for elimination. But the liver itself doesn't store toxins. It acts as a filter. It stores tons of nutrients for your body. So I hope this has been helpful. Let me stop my screen share here and get back to my page. Can you see me? Cool. Awesome, guys. I hope this was helpful. Once again, if you have any questions, first of all, put them beneath this video. I'll be happy to respond to any of those questions there. I'll have some of the links that we talked to in the description for this video. We are good on time. It's been about half an hour. I hope it's been a valuable time spent. And we're going to have future videos breaking down this information into some bite-sized chunks to make this easier for you as well. So, hey, if you don't mind liking, sharing this video, send this to someone who needs to see it. It helps the algorithm too if you like and share this with other people so that it shows up to people who need to hear this type of info. So thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Have a great day.